All right, my full name is Lew Robert Roman. I was born in 1948, October 29th, in Patterson General Hospital, Patterson, New Jersey.
Did you grow up in Patterson?
No, as a matter of fact, I lived in Glen Rock for 5 years and then Ridgewood for the rest of my life.
How did you happen to get into the military?
Well, I was considering joining up, and my parents had been in the Army Air Corps, and they met at Scottsfield, Illinois, together. They went their separate ways for a while. My mother was a librarian. My dad ended up being a weatherman in the Aleutians. But my mother's father was a baker in the Navy, and he had taught me a lot of stuff as I was growing up, and kind of idolized him. So I decided that Navy was the right choice for me. So I joined the Navy.
When did you join?
Uh, right after school, I enlisted, and they gave me 3 months. So it was in November 5th of 1968 that I actually have a official enlistment.
Did you have anything you were going into the Navy specifically for, a school or any kind of?
Not specifically, but they said that by my aptitude, storekeeping sounded like a good thing for me. So I said, that sounds good to me. So I said, let's do it. Let's be a storekeeper. So after I went to boot camp in Great Lakes Naval Training Station, they shipped me out to Rhode Island for storekeeper school.
How long were you there for that?
It was about 3 months. Before the school started, because they had certain time limits, I had to wait around, and they had me be the coffee boy for the instructors, and that was kind of interesting because I got to go around the facility and make sure they had their coffee made, and for about a month or so before school started. Well, after my storekeeper school ended, and it seemed like every other class was going to Vietnam, and I ended up being one of the ones going to Vietnam. So they sent me to Little Creek, Virginia for counterinsurgency school. Counterinsurgency school. So I was there for about a month and a half, trying to find out how to hide myself and keep away from the bad guys, the enemy.
Probably not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea at all. No. One of the things I didn't mention when I got my orders for Vietnam, I'd written to a friend of mine, and we were going to meet in Da Nang if we could. Well, the day I was going to tell my mom that I was going to Vietnam, she told me that my best friend had got killed over there. And she says, I am so sorry. I was just afraid you were going to tell me you were going over. And it was on April 13, 1969, that he got killed. And I have a picture of his name on the wall.
Of your high school class, did most of the guys end up in the service? Did they end up going to Vietnam, or did they scatter?
For my high school class, I don't think that many went. But the town next to us, which was a smaller town, I'd heard a rumor that they were one of the highest per capita deaths of any town in the United States. For being a small town, they had too many people killed over there. But my town, I hadn't heard too many people going to Vietnam or even joining the service. And I think my high school, a lot of the kids probably went to college because they were pretty smart kids in my school. I was sort of in the middle myself. They gave me some orders. They gave me leave time. Said, okay, you have to be out in California at such and such a date for a flight to Hawaii, and then final orders to Saigon.
When were you in Vietnam?
The middle of 1969 to just well, as a matter of fact, I flew in on July 4th, so I got to see some fireworks. Not the right kind of fireworks, but I got to see some fireworks. So yeah, July 4th, 1969, and got June 1970. I came home, and I got out in Saigon, and then they said, okay, you're going to the naval barracks, Annapolis, and that's where you'll get your orders. So I got out to Annapolis, and it was a half a dozen days or so. While I was there, I had my first incident. We had a cab that had a satchel charge in it, which blew up in front of the facility I was in. I was taking a nap upstairs at the time. The concussion knocked me out of my bunk and knocked me on the floor and did some damage to the front. They had this gated area in front, completely demolished that, and they had to rebuild it and everything. So that was my first action. So interesting. But hey, we were in a war zone area, so you got to expect stuff like that. It's going to happen every once in a while.
What were you really assigned to then? When you
They assigned me to a converted barge, YRBM 21, yard repair, berthing, and messing. It was a converted barge, had no propulsion of its own. And initially, it was in the Vamco River, supporting river patrol boats anchored out there. And that's where I got to start my storekeeping out in Vietnam. We did have a couple of ships in the area that were also barracks ships supporting the troops. And this was naval personnel, as a matter of fact. Now, after I was there for about a month, they towed us to an army base called Dongtam. And it had a port in it too. And they tied us up there right next to another YRBM 18, which was our sister barge, I guess. And we stayed there for about a month. We're getting our stuff together. And we only worked 6 days a week. So we lucked out and we got to have liberty on the beach there, and we'd go and play football, and on our days off, and then go back to work. And after we were there for about a month, they towed us again, and this time they took us out to the South China Sea, down to the Mekong River. And I don't know how many days it took them, but they took us up the Mekong River to about 10 miles from the Cambodian border, where they anchored us. And that's where we really got to do our jobs, supporting river patrol boats. Plus, we had a flight deck, and we supported 2 helicopters as well, 2 Hueys.
talked to guys that was the way they were transported in for their first combat missions.
Oh, no, I got to go on a boat up the river, the Vamco River, to get to the barge that I was on. It would have been nice to be helicoptered out there instead, but no, we're going up the river, and we're watching this storm come down the river, and on one side of the river we see this old French fort, and after the storm goes by, there's that French fort on the other side of the river. The river was so wide we got turned around and started heading back the other way. We had one helicopter that was trying to leave our flight deck and didn't have enough power, and it went right into the Mekong River.
The pilot lived.
Yes, he did. Yeah, I don't remember how long it took him to get the helicopter out. I don't know if they brought in a Chinook helicopter with the crane to haul it out, or if they used our crane. But more than likely, because of the weight of the helicopter, they would have had to use a Chinook helicopter to get it out, if they got it at all. But that was the scariest thing. I was on the part of the flight crew, and I'm watching the guy take off. Yeah, right into the water. That doesn't happen very often, but when you don't have enough propulsion, it can happen. Most of the time, the helicopters we had were the ones that went out to fight. And every once in a while, we'd get one that came back that had to be a medevac. So we've had a few bodies come through on our helipad, which is sad, but got to get them out of there somehow.
Did you get to know some of these pilots of the helicopters?
No, I never had that opportunity.
Just kind of curious. So they just
Sure.
kind of came and went then.
Pretty much, yeah. Once in a while, they had time. They'd come out and eat and stuff like that. But, I never got to meet any of them. Besides the flight deck, we had an area in the back where they had a crane. And when a river patrol boat needs repairs, they craned it up on the back of the barge and put it back together. They were made with fiberglass. So we had a lot of fiberglass patching that the guys did. They were the lighter boats. Well, basically what it was is we had a group that was attached to us, so they were the ones that we usually needed help. I'm sure that We had a few in the area that they needed us also, and I suppose that they came and got patched up by us as well. Now, down from us, besides us, was the USS Benoit, and like I had mentioned, they were a barrack ship also. They supplied food and everything else to the river patrol boats as well. Oh, there's all sorts of different types of boats. You got the river patrol boat, which you call the PBR. It's a light boat made out of fiberglass. It can turn on a dime. It was the fastest one that got the most uh, publication. I met a friend was on a tango boat. They were one of the riverine boats. That what they did is they hauled the army troops to various different locations to do their jobs. Yeah, they have a gate in the front that drops down, and the troops run out there on the land and do their job wherever they need to, and then the boats go back out in the river away from the action. Of course, they have, in many cases, had some action themselves. But when the job is done for the Army, they come and pick them up and take them back to Dongtam or whatever base that they were at. But that was the tango boat. They had all sorts of different boats. They had the Mike boat that was similar to the tango boat. It didn't have the flight deck that the tango boat did, and they also carried troops around too. Had Alpha boat, Monitor boat. I think I'm not too sure about what the Alpha boat was, but they had either the Alpha or the Mike boat. One of them shot out fire, shot out flame, and they were all scary. I met a friend also who was on one of the Swift boats, and unfortunately for him at the time, a plane had gone overhead and dropped some of the Agent Orange, and he is a victim of Agent Orange. I haven't seen him in a couple months, but I think he's still doing okay. But hopefully I'll meet him in another month or so, see what's going on. But for the boats, they had a lot of other different types, but I'm not too sure about more of them. They were the ones that were in the most danger. I mentioned Dongtem before. Dongtem was an army base, and that's where the riverine forces came together. That's where the forces to be said, okay, Army and Navy, you're going to work together. You're going to use these tango boats, and you're going to take these army guys out there, and you're going to have about a dozen boats, and they're going to have a place to go, and you're going to take them to the beach, drop them off, and let them go do their job. When they need you back, you're going to be back there and pick them up and take them back to Dongtem, and that's what they did.
Up and down the river, you had to be right close to enemy troops.
Well, we didn't see that so much. We were on high alert most of the time because, especially when a lot of debris was coming down the river, our guards were on top of it, and we had concussion grenades that we threw in the river just in case there were swimmers by the debris, and that would really knock the heck out of them and either kill them or knock them out of concussion and float to the top. Never saw that happen though, so we were lucky about that. Well, there's a lot of people that don't know about it, about what the Navy did down there, but they had, in the Mekong Delta, there was a lot of rivers and streams, and the PBRs were the best for the smaller streams. And they could, because like I said, they could turn on a dime, they were lightweight, and they could do a lot of damage, and they surely did their jobs out there. Well, like the Mekong River itself was pretty wide. I mean, I could see, probably a half a mile wide in some places. Some people don't know too much about the Mekong. The Mekong is one of those rivers that has a tendency to change direction. And as a matter of fact, the barge I was on, the YRBM 21, we had a beer barge where when we were off duty, we could go and drink. The USS Benoit had a beer barge as well. They were downriver from us. One of their river patrol boats at one time came when they were off duty and drank at ours when theirs was closed. Now, unfortunately for them, the course of the river changed. And instead of going downriver to the USS Benoit, they went upriver into into Cambodia. And one of our nice artists drew a nice picture of Andy Capp on a nice big board, says Last Chance Saloon. And it was their last chance, those poor guys. We did get them back after a number of years, but they were captured and they were held captive for a while.
Boy, you don't think about something like that happening.
No, but when the river changes and you don't know about it and you've been drinking, weird things can happen. Yeah, I was a little disappointed. There's a website. I typed in Brown Water Navy YRBM 21, and bingo, there's a picture of the converted barge I was on in the middle of the Mekong. And also, there's many other pictures with that, and there is a picture of the Last Chance Saloon, but they didn't put a caption in why it's called the Last Chance Saloon. And that's why, because that river patrol boat that went into Cambodia.
There had to be an awful lot of activity on that river then.
Not so much around us. We did have some sampans that did come and join us every once in a while for a medical call. But aside from that, we didn't see too many boats going up and down the river.
Were you pretty much in one place, or did you go up and down the river?
For the most part, we were anchored right there, about 10 miles from the Cambodian border, and we were not moved for the most part, unless they needed us in another area.
How many men were on your boat?
I'm not 100% sure, but I would say probably around 100, 90 to 100, because we had a lot of different jobs we had to do. And they have to be prepared to take care of themselves in case they're attacked as well. So, you know, even they're in support. That supply lines are very important. We had fuel for the helicopters, fuel for the boats, and of course, when the boats came back, we fed them right there, but they had to have some supplies as they're out there during the day. And we had plenty of ammunition for them.
And who would resupply you?
Oh, we'd get a tugboat or some kind of barge brought up to us, and once in a while, one of the helicopters would land and would not land on us, but drop a big supply of supplies on our flight deck. We were right there for them to shoot at, but we didn't seem to have anybody want to say, okay, we want to get rid of you and do it. So now I did hear a rumor. I mentioned Dongtem before. I did hear a rumor that the night that we left, the place that we were at was hit with a mortar. I don't know that for a fact. This is just hearsay. But I said, oh boy, I'm glad we left when we did. Now, we were on red alert a few times while we were there, because like I said, we were there for a month, and they did get hit a few times. As a matter of fact, one of my friends said that the ammo dump there had got hit one time, and we weren't there for that, luckily, because that was really scary from what he said.
I imagine that would be.
We've heard from a couple of other guys that saw ammo dumps get hit, and yeah, it was a pretty large, pretty serious situation there.
Well, when you got bullets, the bullets can go anywhere. You're going to watch out when the ammo dump gets hit. So definitely want.
Shells and mortar
Yeah, you
rounds.
definitely want to get away from it.
Yeah, but these were guys who were up more towards the DMZ.
Right.
I mean, they were in totally different situations. Like you must have looked non-threatening.
I think that I'm non-threatening, but then again, who knows? We were out there supporting the boats, so if they wanted to have no place for the boats to go, they could have got us. But luckily they didn't. Well, we did get to go on land a few times and go through some of the villages there. Matter of fact, I did have a pair of pants that I needed a little sew job on, and one of the guys there had a machine and stitched up for me. So yeah, we did have a little bit of interaction with the civilians. It was pretty nice. I think since we were allowed to go to these small towns or villages or whatever you want to call them, I think that they were pretty safe because we didn't have any other support besides just us going on the beach. So I guess that was pretty safe. I remember one time that they brought a barracks barge up and tied it on the back of our barge, and we had to set up bunks, and we used ammo boxes, the wooden ammo boxes for
Trunks or
trunk is the closest word to it. But something like that. We had to put them out there and set the bunks up. And then I heard that we were going to give a river patrol group to the Vietnamese, and they wouldn't accept the river patrol boats unless they got a, a jeep and a motorcycle for their uh, for their two top officers. I says, wait a minute, we're giving you these boats. Come on, you want more? Man, we did so much for them, and they didn't seem like they were appreciative. That kind of hurt too. I even saw some of their boats where they had their whole families on the boats. Chickens and goats and stuff like that. Yeah, the Vietnamese.
when you were in Vietnam, were you pretty much stationed on those rivers the whole time? Did you ever get to do any R&R and see any other parts of the country when you were there?
Oh, for an R&R, I was gonna go to Australia, but I switched with a friend of mine and went to Japan instead. But that was pretty interesting. That was a lot of fun. It was just perfect timing because they had the the World's Fair in Osaka. So a buddy of mine and I went to the World's Fair in Osaka. Unfortunately, while we were going through there, we went into one that was an American pavilion, and they were singing some old Western song, and they wanted us to join along. We didn't know all the words to the song. We kind of faked it. But that was interesting. But overall, the World's Fair was really nice.
Did you get any reaction when you came back from Vietnam?
Personally, I didn't. I'd heard about all the crap that was going on to keep it a little bit clean. When I got home, I was through the bus station in New York City to get a bus back home. When I got to my street, I just walked up the middle of my street. Nobody came out and said boo, or nobody said hi or whatever. I just walked right up the street, went in the back door of my house and said, I'm home. And I didn't get the ration that a lot of people did. I do have a friend, a female friend, that was in the Navy during that time, and she said she even got spat on and called a baby killer. And I said, I can't understand that. Because, first off, she might not even have been, she wasn't even in Vietnam. But just because she was military, she got dumped on. I don't think that's fair. But yeah, that was a time of year, that time of the, not the year, of the whole situation, that nobody liked that war. And yeah, it was bad. And I'm so glad that we're getting pats on the back and say, thanks for your service. Nowadays, I don't know who pushed for that, but boy, it wasn't like that back then. Not at all.
Have you seen guys that you served with over there since?
I haven't seen any of them, but I am in a couple of different groups, and I am corresponding with some of them, but just a couple of them. All going our separate ways.
I guess, once you get back, you just go right back to life, don't you?
Well, except for the fact that I still had some years to go. I was in the regular Navy for 3 years, 9 months. I got out to go to college, and then I was in the reserves for about 2 years.
So you were in the Navy for a while after you got back from Vietnam?
Yes, but didn't have too much service to do. Just had to go for a weekend, a month, or something like that. But, I said, hey, I'm still here. They didn't need me, luckily, to go anywhere. Because
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Now,
that was what I
what's your next step?
did next. After I got out of Vietnam, I went to the USS Hermitage. I love to brag about being on drugs when I was in the Navy because of the letters on the ship, LSD 34, landing ship dock. A lot of people heard of LSTs, but we've got LSDs also. Well, an LST is a tank landing ship. They basically had tanks on there, and they opened up in the front, right up by the land. And the tanks went out there. They had some floatability to them, and they just went onto the land. Now, the LST, we stop in the middle of the ocean and drop the gate down and let the boats out. But more times than not, it was close to land where, the Army, the Marines would do their exercises. Well, these ships had, they were amphibious. They had a gate in the back that lowered, and they let water in, and we'd again, we're support. We carried the Marines around and some of their boats, and that was interesting meeting some of these guys.
How many troops could you bring in and out on that? One of those.
Oh, I'd probably guess probably 100 or thereabouts, because they had plenty of room for the boats, so they had to have plenty of guys to take care of them, to drive them, and to be transported. I don't recall the dimensions at all, but again, we probably had about 200 to 250 personnel on there, because it was larger than the barge I was on, but that barge was bigger than a boat. So it was pretty big too, but the ship was a bit bigger than the barge was, and it was a lot of fun too.
It meant for seagoing, more or less.
Yes. Yeah, we got our rocking going on out there, but it was all right. But this was on the other side of the world. This was out of Little Creek, Virginia.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So-
I really got myself.
So complete.
screwed up.
Well, I didn't mention that part to you. You know, from Vietnam to Little Creek, Virginia, onto this ship, and we made a Mediterranean cruise. Went to Caribbean. Went to Colombia. I think the Mediterranean was pretty neat though, because we stopped at half a dozen different ports there.
Do you think they changed much in the way those were built, and from World War II to Vietnam?
I don't think they've changed that much during that period of time, but as progress has gone on, they've changed them considerably in the 2000s, I'm sure. Because I've been hearing about other different types of boats that are similar to the LSDs. I think it was an LPD. I don't know exactly what that was, but it was similar. It had a landing pad, flight deck like the LSD-34 did. Similar but different, different jobs.
So after you got out of the service, what did you decide to do?
Oh, I used a GI Bill and I went to college. I got a 2-year degree in accounting. And then I started working in accounting after that. And I was back in New Jersey in 1978. That's when I moved up to Colorado.
Why'd you move here?
New Jersey was like the 3rd highest cancer rate state in the nation. And I says, I don't need that. I want to get away from that. So I wrote to all sorts of different chambers of commerce, Utah, Wyoming, Colorado. Aurora sounded good. Glad I didn't end up going there. But we came out, checked out Denver. Denver seemed really good. We went to Elitch's, the old Elitch's. Went on Twister about 10 times in a row. Then ended up going out to California, visited my brother, and then we went back to New Jersey. And that was back in '78. And in August, I said, guess what? I'm moving to Colorado. So I came out here. I'm glad I did. I love it out here. Lived 3 different places in Denver, and then found a house up in Broomfield and said, yes, this is where I want to stay. And I love Broomfield too. So I think it's one of the safest cities that we have here.
How long have you been here?
Let's see, 88.
How'd you get involved with the museum here?
They had an ad in the newspaper. They were looking for somebody to help in the collections department. And I says, well, I'm retired. I'm looking for something else to do. And so I came in, gave my application, started volunteering 1 day a week. And I says, is there any way we can do 2 days a week? And they did it 2 days a week. And this was just before Megan was hired as the curator. She was working here, assisting Jackie, Annalie Conley, yeah. And then they promoted her to be the curator, and she was working 2 days a week. I think it was Wednesday, Thursday, and split it to Tuesday, Thursday. And I said, that works for me. Let's do it. So, and then, like we said earlier, they invited me to be on the board, and I said, yes, I want to do it. So, but this room right here, this is one of my main considerations, because all that talk that I gave, I want people to know in the museum itself what the Navy did down there. Because just to dress blues in the corner, that's not enough. We didn't wear just blues over there. Now, I appreciate the fact why they don't want to change it, because his brother is in this case over here, and he got killed over there. And, I respect everything, but we just need to expand so much and add so much to this museum. There's little things here and little things there that need to be done, and I think showing more about what the Navy did is more than a little thing. I did mention earlier that friend of mine that in the Vietnam veterans that was on a tango boat. He did have his greens from when he was over there, and I did get them from him, and we're trying to get them donated to the museum. We have a special procedure where the collection committee says yay or nay, and so far it's leaning towards the yay, but we got to get that finished, and I wanted to change that out, but I've had a little talk with some of the other guys, and one of the guys says, well, we want to have a temporary display in here for Vietnam. Would you be okay with having that in a temporary display? I said, well, yes. Yeah, anything to help show what the Navy did, yes, in Vietnam.
That's a big point. It really is.
When you are around other Vietnam veterans, do you find that they don't understand what the Navy did over there? If they were in other branches of service?
I haven't talked to too many of the Army and Marine guys, so I don't know that at this time. But as I get to go to more and more of these Vietnam veterans meetings, I'll be able to talk to more and more of the different guys, because I've been pushing for the Navy part to try to have them help me help this museum get this room changed. So, as time goes on, I'll find more and more about that as well. But maybe they don't, because they were on land. So they might not have any clue either. Well, my wife and I were just down in New Orleans to go on a cruise, and I says, well, let's take an extra day down there. And she says, yeah, I want to go to Bourbon Street. And I says, well, okay, that's well and good. I want to go there too. I'd been there once before. But I says, I want to go to the National World War II Museum and check that out. And I did. And she loved it too. There was a movie narrated by Tom Hanks. I can't remember the name of it, unfortunately, but it was really, really interesting about the war. And it told how we could have lost the war in the Pacific. And once we got in the right place, they said, okay, we got two sets of ships that are going to be attacking these islands over here. We're going to start on the bottom over here, you're going to start over there, and we're going to hit the ones that aren't fortified that well. And that's how we ended up winning the war, just going right up there and kicking the crap out of those islands that didn't have the forces on them.
Step by step.
Yep, step by step, exactly. And then also they have a simulation of the USS Tang, the submarine, that we have a wooden model over there in the other room. And we got to go down with the Tang. They gave us a little card, a little bigger than a baseball card, with a name and a number on it. And you had to go to that person's duty station and do their job. And we're going into this one area. And, all right, we see so many ships out there. Let's go get them. So we feel it revving up and everything, and the vibrations and stuff. And our job was to move the gauges to set up the torpedoes and everything. And we get them fired and everything. And it was really neat. And we'd strike some of the ships. And then, okay, we did our job, and they said, okay, it's time for us to get out of here. And unfortunately, we were too close to a couple of the other ships, and we got hit, and we ended up going down with the Tang. Going down with the Tang. There was like 7 to 9 survivors that were all captured.
Is there anything else that came up during the time that you were in Vietnam that we hadn't really thought about or haven't talked about at this point? But
not too much that I can think of. The only thing that I saw was it was a beautiful country. They didn't need to have a war. because I really like some of the areas that I went to in Vietnam. I feel that we could have won the Vietnam War, but we had too many restrictions. We needed to bomb Hanoi. Why didn't we bomb Hanoi? There's so many questions. It's all in the past, and we can't change it now. But we should have won that war. Well, like I was thinking, I'm a support. What do I have interesting to tell anybody?
But it is
Tell
interesting.
tell my job. Tell them what I did. You
That's
know,
right.
because people don't know all the ins, ands, or buts, and you have to have somebody support the troops. You know, they need their food and they need their ammunition, and we were there to give them the food and ammunition. And a lot of people don't understand that.